Yes, to get more on that devastating loss for England in their opening Euros match against France. Of course, they lost 2-1. Delighted to welcome in former England midfielder Jordan Nobbs and host of the full-time phone-in after Lionesses game. Jordan, how are we?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Hi, Jordan.
Look, obviously, last night, England's worst fears realised. I really think they sort of let France outgun them, overpower them. And other than that disallowed goal in the first sort of 15 minutes, there wasn't a shot on target, I believe, till the 85th minute. What went wrong?
Yeah, it was a tough night for the Lionesses. I think, like you said, they were on top until Rousseau's disallowed goal. And then I think France just turned it up to another level, winning their first and second balls, creating a lot in the wide areas. And yeah, England didn't look up to themselves. I think it was good that in the last 10 minutes we started to see what the Lionesses can do, but it was a very tough outing from two top teams.
John, I've got a question. Where are they right now, sort of coming into the tournament compared to where they were winning the Euros last time out? I mean, they seem sort of that consistency is gone. You know, you beat Belgium 5-0 in the Nations League, then lose to them 3-2 4 days later. Win against Spain at Wembley, and obviously you can lose to Spain. They're arguably the best team in the competition, but 2-1 probably flattered England rather than Spain. Why such the inconsistency now, do you feel?
Yeah, there has been inconsistency, and I think you always say, it matters what happens in tournament, but then after that first game, you're kind of thinking, have teams started to get used to England? Serena's very, well, we all know she likes her experienced players. She knows her team well before the tournament, even her subs as well. And, teams start to understand that. They start to know the players. There's no surprises. And I think that's where she's got to look at. If that happens again, we've got to make subs earlier, or you've got to adapt and change the team to surprise teams, players that they don't know about, they don't know their strengths. You saw Adjiman obviously come on and, people don't know how she plays. So it's a bit of surprise for teams. And maybe Serena's got the same team, which have been really reliable for her. But I think we also can't take for granted that they have just played a very top French team at the moment who are in form. And that's not an easy start to a tournament.
Jordan, you mentioned there about the substitutions. 2-0 down against France, looking pretty nervy at the back. Even Leah Williamson, Jess Carter, who I think looked a little bit exposed at left back there. They were really honest after the game and said, there was some, poor defending going on. You've mentioned that there were no substitutions at half time and that maybe Serena needs to change things around. But do you anticipate that? Because similar to Gareth Southgate, Serena Wiegman likes her experienced players. Can you see her making a dramatic shift in her approach for what is essentially a must-win game against Netherlands on Wednesday?
Yeah, it's a must-win, so she's going to pick her best 11. But I think when you look at first game in the tournament, you don't really want to be bringing a player off at half-time. You need them for the rest of the tournament. That's a very big call. But I think you could obviously see that Jess Carter got subbed a little bit later on, which she was playing against a very informed Cascarino, who was causing her a lot of trouble. And I think that was where the team maybe needed to help her out a little bit. Have you got that extra midfielder just dropping in and supporting to double up and help her out? But I think there'll be a few changes. But in the World Cup, we've seen Serena play 3-5-2, but I don't know if she would go for change in formation when it's a must-win game. I think it might be one or two changes and a little bit of tactics, but when you look at the game, it's probably more sometimes the basics that they just needed to get back. That you can't be losing your 1v1 battles. That's just a bare minimum that to get out of the groups is needed.
Georgia Stanway not quite 100% match fit. We know that Lauren James isn't as well, but absolute quality, and hopefully she'll get fitter and fitter as the tournament goes on. Kira Walsh, very much a technical player, but perhaps not quite as mobile, certainly as we saw in the game last night. We talk about changes, talking about the lack of substitutions. What would you do for the next game?
Yeah, I think I guess the unfortunate thing the Lionesses have is they've had a lot of injuries leading up to it, and you look at the spine of their team the other day, you've got Lauren James, Lauren Hemp, Alex Greenwood, Georgia Stanway. They've all played limited minutes recently. So I think it probably showed that a little bit. Maybe they needed that game out their system. But then you look at Ella Toon, I think, like you just said, she was the first player to get a shot that led to then the corner for Kira Walsh. So I think a player like that, do you bring in an Ella Toon and maybe put Lauren James out on the wing or keep her centrally? And I think maybe you could play around with Neve Charles coming in at full back. You know, they have the luxury, but players didn't obviously put in the best performance the other day, so it allows Serena to maybe make some changes.
Jordan, trying to sort of focus on the more positive side of things. You know, you look at Argentina when they won the World Cup, lost to Saudi Arabia. You look at Lee Carsley's England under-21s. They went on to win it, but had a bit of a shaky group stage. I guess what we can say about Serena Wiegman is she's incredibly experienced in these tournaments. Yes, it's a must-win game, but there's got to be hope from fans, you know, from within the squad that they've got the pedigree to go on, win when it matters, and start building momentum as the tournament goes on.
Yeah, and there's no one better for it than Serena playing her old national team with the Netherlands.
Yeah.
I mean, she'll know everything about them, what they do. So I think that's key in having a manager that does that. And like you say, it's tournament football. If the Lionesses win their next 2 games, they're back in the running and back in it. So, you know, they'll still have all the belief, and the Lionesses have shown they've turned up when it's come to being big major tournaments. So I have no doubt that they won't put in a performance like they did against France. But again, I think it's also given credit to the French team. I think they played an unbelievable game,
dangerous.
and they now look like one of the favourites to probably go far in the tournament after that.
Talk to us about the Netherlands then. You know, how strong are they? Obviously, they were very good against Wales. This is a must-win game now for England. The pressure's on. You know, Max was just likened it to, I did it this morning as well with Argentina and what happened. You don't want it, but actually you've got to have that sort of knockout mentality at some point. How do you see the Netherlands coming up against us?
I think one thing about the Netherlands is they've won the Euros before, so they've been there and done that like the Lionesses. I think their players up front are really strong. They're not a very rigid team. They like to move around. They like to interchange. You've got Dan van der Donk, Vic Pelova, Viv Miedema. You know, they're all very talented forwards that score goals and create moments. So I think it'll be not allowing them to get on the ball and trying to get balls in the box, a bit like Wales did in the first 10, 15 minutes of their game. You know, they just didn't have enough bodies to capitalise on that. But the Netherlands will cause different problems to France. You know, they haven't got that speed that they have, but they definitely have the different rotations, which can cause another problem.
Yeah, Jordan, brilliant stuff. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan.
Just a reminder, of course, that must-win game is live on talkSPORT on Wednesday, 5 o'clock, England versus the Netherlands, presented by talkSPORT's Voice of Football, Adrian Durham. And, of course, Jordan Nobbs will be back with the full-time phone-in after that game, and we hope that it'll be a much more positive one. That was